And joining us now, Republican Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. Senator, great to see you and great to have you here today. It's hard sometimes to look at these numbers. $172 billion they want to spend. Just how far left do you think some of these members like AOC of President Biden's party, how far do you think they can push them?
Well, they definitely think that money grows on trees, and I guess that's part of the green plan. We're all for trees, and so you're going to go to the money tree to find this. If you add all of it up from the infrastructure bill, it's actually about $500 billion. So there's $174 billion for weatherizing houses, which actually never gets to energy efficiency to meet the cost. There's about $100 billion for electric cars. There's $10 billion for some kind of army of climate change people, some kind of climate core youth, which I think has connotations in a history of our world and European history of these, sort of government-informed youths out there marching for things that the government tells them to do. I think all of it's horrendous, but the biggest problem is the financial drain on the country and the future of our country by spending so much money we don't have.
Senator Paul, let me just play devil's advocate here. So this is a 10-year program. It would cost about $17.2 billion a year. That's the initial program to retrofit public housing. Bernie Sanders says it would create 240,000 jobs, remove 5.6 million metric tons of carbon over the space of 10 years. Again, to play devil's advocate, if done right, isn't this the sort of infrastructure that we should be investing in?
Well, building pyramids would create jobs. So, I mean, it's really, should the government be deciding where we use our dollars and where they're spent and where the jobs created, or should the marketplace? In the marketplace, we vote. So when I go to Walmart or I go to Kroger, I vote on what needs to be produced by buying something. And so what is produced and where the jobs are created are what I like to eat or what I like to buy at Walmart. That is the consumer-driven capitalist way where we vote in the economy. When government does it, it means I don't get to vote as a consumer. Bernie Sanders gets to decide it. The one thing we have to know if we're really concerned about carbon footprint, one public policy item and one sort of industrial decision has accounted for more reduction in carbon than any other decision in the history of this movement, and that's fracking. And so they're against the one thing that actually has reduced the carbon footprint. As we've converted to natural gas, we have reduced the carbon footprint, but that's almost entirely from a technology called fracking that almost every Democrat stands up and speaks out against. So let's be honest about this. If you really want to lower carbon footprint, you need to be for more fracking, you need to be for introducing it around the world. Instead, they're trying to stop it.
I want to get to Maxine Waters' comments. As we know, some members of your party are pushing to censure her, hold her accountable for what they say was incitement of violence. Standing in Brooklyn Center saying, get confrontational. Do you believe that her purpose, Senator, was to incite violence?
Well, this is the hypocrisy. Her language certainly sounds like that. What her intentions are, I don't know, but her language sounds incendiary. And this is what I kept pointing out for all these hypocrites on the Democrat side who came after President Trump and said, go fight for your country, that your voices be heard, and march peacefully, that somehow that was some extraordinary call to violence. When she's saying get up in the face, Cory Booker said the same thing, get up in their face of these congresspeople. Chuck Schumer goes to the Supreme Court and says, hit them like they've never felt it before. A very visual and violent sort of metaphor, hit them like they've never felt it before, specifically naming two justices. Yes, the Democrats are hypocrites for this, but they do need to tone it down, because the thing is we have cities on fire, we have police stations being burned, we have not just a few people killing, we have dozens and dozens and dozens of people being injured, police officers, people being killed in the riots in our cities. And yes, she needs to tone it down.
In the time we have left, Senator Paul, let me draw on your medical experience here. More than half of all adults in the United States have received at least one dose of a COVID vaccine. When, in your estimation, can we start to get back to normal?
Now, yesterday, last week, a third of the public has had this naturally. A third, about 100 million people, 32 million officially, but by the CDC's estimates, at least 2 times more that have been recorded as having it, had it and didn't know they had it. That's 100 million people. We now have over 100 million people who have been inoculated. When you combine natural immunity from having it naturally plus vaccinated immunity, we are at a point where we can get back to normal. And by all means, encourage people to get vaccinated by telling them when you're vaccinated and you have immunity, you can throw away your mask and you can start going to church. Don't listen to Fauci. Don't listen to Biden. Get out and live your life. Get vaccinated if you haven't already had it. And if you've already had it, get back to normal life.
So it's a big statement. I think we're just at this point where we all just wonder when things change where we are. Admiral Giroir was joining us last hour, and he says, well, in Texas, things are kind of back to normal. It's all these other states that are still, masks up and dealing with this at a different level. Senator,
most people are discounting the advice of Fauci and Biden already. They're doing what they want to do. They're smiling. They've been inoculated, and they're living their life. Americans aren't going to wait for the government to tell them what to do.
But do you think that's going to be the turning point when Dr. Fauci is finally willing to say something that we can get our lives back to normal? Do you think that Americans will lean on that?
Look, I was just in Florida for a week. I've been in Texas visiting family. They're not waiting for Dr. Fauci. They've discounted him as an elitist who really isn't giving good advice and who really isn't even following the science of his own institute. So, no, I think his advice has been discounted. We don't need to wait for him. We are Americans. We can make up our own mind. We do not need elitists who think they're smarter than us to make the decision for us. I say people make your own decision based on what you think your risks are and the best information you have out there.
May run into a little blowback in public. All right, we'll take your advice. Senator Rand Paul, good to see you as always.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.